The wasteland had a sound, not silence. Silence would have been mercy. No, the wasteland had the sound of wind dragging itself across dead earth. The whisper of sand shifting over bones that had been there so long, nobody remembered whose bones they were anymore. Kira Ashridge had been walking for 3 weeks. 3 weeks since they told her father was dead. 3 weeks since War Chief Thane Ironheart fell in glorious battle against the human kingdoms. 3 weeks since they handed her his blade and told her to be proud. She knew better. The leather cord around her neck held the truth. A fragment of green stone no larger than her palm covered in runes that predated the war. Her father had pressed it into her hands in the dead of night 2 days before they killed him. His face had been hard in the firelight, his voice harder. "This is proof," he had said. 300 years of lies. Find the other half. Finish what I started. Then he was gone. The official story said human archers. The whispers said ambush. Kira knew the real word. Assassination, her own people. War chiefs who profited from endless conflict. Leaders who saw peace as poverty and truth as treason. They murdered him for asking questions. Now she carried those questions across a wasteland that stretched from the Colorado ruins to the eastern kingdoms. New Mexico's sun beat down like a hammer forging steel. Each step forward was defiance. Each breath was warfare against the lie that wanted her silent. She was 26 years old, orc skin the color of forest moss, warrior braids pulled tight against her skull, tusks small but sharp, eyes the color of honey catching light. And in those eyes, something her father had recognized before anyone else, the inability to accept easy answers. The seal fragment pulsed warm against her chest, not hot, just present, like a heartbeat that wasn't hers. Her father had spent 20 years researching it. 20 years piecing together fragments of truth from ruins nobody was supposed to explore. He discovered it in an old vault beneath what used to be called Denver before the war, before the kingdoms rose and the hatred became institutional. 300 years ago, humans and orcs had peace. Real peace, a treaty sealed in magic. 2 halves of one stone. When joined, they created power that prevented organized warfare between the species, made it impossible for armies to mass against each other. Brilliant magic, ancient magic, the kind nobody knew how to create anymore. Someone had broken it deliberately, shattered both halves, erased the treaty from history books on both sides, then started the war. Not for territory, not for resources, for profit. War made certain people very rich, nobles, generals, merchants who sold swords and armor. Peace would make them unnecessary. So peace became impossible. Her father had found proof, letters, documents, evidence of conspiracy spanning 3 centuries. Human and orc leadership working together to maintain the lie, to keep their people killing each other while they counted gold. He tried to tell the clan elders, tried to show them what he had discovered. They called him traitor. 2 days later, he gave Kira the seal fragment and a map. Locations marked in his hand, notes in both Common and Orcish. The human half of the seal was in the eastern capital, Washington, deep in the royal vault beneath the castle. Get it, he had said. Expose them. All of them. Then he rode out to die. Kira adjusted the pack on her shoulders, her father's maps, his research. 3 weeks of walking. 3 weeks of grief that tasted like iron and rage that burned clean. She was not her father's vengeance. She was his legacy. The thought carried her another mile, then another. The sun tracked west. The wasteland offered nothing. No shade, no water. Just heat and distance and the slow understanding that some journeys you take alone. That is when she heard it, the sound of earth that was not earth, a wet sucking noise, like the wasteland itself was hungry. Kira stopped walking. Her hand went to the axe at her belt. 15 years of warrior training. Her body reacted before her mind caught up. She scanned the horizon. Nothing moved, just red rock and dead scrub and sand the color of old blood. Then she took another step. The ground opened beneath her. Not collapse, not earthquake. Something alive. The sand grabbed her ankle like a hand. She tried to pull back, but the grip tightened, yanked. She went down hard. Her pack hit the ground. The axe fell from her hand. Magic quicksand. The realization hit as fast as the sand pulled. This was not natural. This was engineered, placed here by someone who knew travelers use this route. A trap. For her specifically or just for anyone, it did not matter. The sand was up to her knees now, moving like something with intention, patient, savoring. Kira forced herself to stop struggling. Panic was death. She spread her weight, tried to keep her arms free. Her warrior training covered this. Quicksand tactics, stay calm, distribute pressure, work your way out slowly. The theory worked fine in training pits with instructors watching. The reality was different. The sand did not just pull, it seemed to want, like it had been waiting, like it knew she carried something it was supposed to claim. The seal fragment burned against her skin now. Not painful, warning, chest deep. The sand reached her shoulders. Kira could feel it pulling at the leather cord, trying to take the seal, trying to drag it down into whatever darkness waited below. She grabbed the cord with both hands, held it tight. If she died here, the truth died with her. 300 years of lies would continue. Her father's sacrifice would mean nothing. The war would grind on, humans and orcs killing each other while the powerful counted their profits. Not acceptable. Kira screamed, not a cry for help. She knew better. The wasteland was empty. Nobody came out here, nobody would hear. But her body needed to do something, needed to fight back, so she screamed because what else could she do? The scream tore out of her throat, raw and desperate. The sound of someone whose body had just sent an urgent message to their brain. We are dying right now. This is it. She screamed again, louder, angrier. If she was going to die, she was going to die loud. The third scream died in her throat. Someone was watching her. A man stood on the right ridge, 30 feet away. Human, tall, maybe 6 feet, broad shoulders. He wore armor that had seen better days. The crest on his chest was familiar. Kingdom of the East, royal military, a knight, her enemy. Their eyes met across the distance. His were gray, the color of winter sky before snow. He had a scar on his left cheek, another on his jaw, a face that had seen combat and survived it. His hand rested on his sword hilt, not drawn, not threatening, just there. A habit born from years of training. Kira measured him, calculated her odds. She was chest deep in magic sand, unarmed. Her axe 5 feet away might as well be 5 miles. If he wanted her dead, she was dead. The question was what he wanted. The man did not move, just stood there, looking at her like she was a problem that had walked into his path uninvited. 15 years of war between their peoples. 15 years of propaganda and hatred and blood. 15 years of being taught that orcs were monsters, animals, the enemy. He should walk away. Any smart human would walk away. Kira made a choice. Help, she said, not shouted, just said it. Like she was testing the word to see if it still worked. The man's jaw tightened. His hand flexed on the sword hilt. 3 seconds of eternity passed. Then he moved. Not toward her, toward his pack. He pulled out rope, old hemp, frayed in places, maybe 30 feet. He tested it once, twice. His movements were efficient, practiced. Someone who had done field work before. Can you catch? He called out. His voice was rough, like gravel under boots, but not unkind. Kira nodded, conserved her energy, let him see she was not panicking. Warriors recognize warriors. If he was going to help, she would prove she was worth the effort. The man tied a loop in one end, tested the knot, then threw. The rope sailed through the air with decent form. It fell 6 feet short. Of course, the man muttered, because nothing today can be simple. He reeled it back in, adjusted his stance. Threw again. This time the loop landed within reach. Kira caught it with reflexes that came from a childhood spent training for war. Fast hands, good eye coordination. The skills you developed when your people raised you for combat from age 6. She looped the rope around her torso, under her arms, pulled it tight. Good. She knew what she was doing. On 3, the man said. He wrapped his end around his hands, braced his feet against a rock. Wait, Kira said. He paused. If you are pulling me out to kill me, she said, just say so now. Save us both the effort. The man blinked. Of all the things he had expected her to say, that was apparently not on the list. I am not, he said. He stopped. Started again. I am pulling you out because you are stuck. What happens after that, we will figure out after you are not drowning in magic sand. Kira studied him. That moment felt much longer than it actually was. She was reading his face, his posture, the way he stood, looking for the lie. She found none. 3, the man said, and pulled. The quicksand did not want to let go. It held on with the grip of something that viewed this orc as a meal it had already mentally prepared and was not about to surrender without protest. The man's boots dug trenches in the ground, his shoulders locked. The rope cut into his hands even through leather gloves. Every muscle in his body strained against the weight. For a terrible moment, nothing moved. Then inch by inch, Kira rose. The quicksand made a sound, a wet, disappointed slurp, like something realizing its prey was escaping. It pulled back one final time. All of her weight plus however many gallons of enchanted sand had decided to come along for the ride. The man pulled harder. Kira kicked, tried to leverage herself. The rope groaned. One of those frayed spots started unraveling. Faster would be good, she grunted. Open to suggestions, the man shot back, his voice tight with effort. Then with a final disgusting noise that sounded like the wasteland itself admitting defeat, the quicksand released her. Kira came flying out, stumbled forward, crashed into the man. They both went down in a tangle of limbs and rope and sand that tasted like sulfur and disappointment. For a moment, they just lay there, breathing, not dead, which was an improvement over 10 seconds ago. Kira rolled off him first, sat up, looked at him, really looked at him this time, at his armor that still bore the kingdom crest, even though something about the way he wore it suggested the kingdom might not want him anymore. At the sword at his side, at the face of a man who had just saved her life and seemed as surprised about it as she was. Why, she asked. Simple question, complicated answer. Because you were screaming, the man said. He sat up, brushed sand out of his hair, and walking away felt wrong. Kira laughed. It was not a happy sound. It was the laugh of someone who had just discovered the universe had a sense of humor, and that sense of humor was specifically targeting her. A human knight, she said, risked his life to save an orc in the wasteland. During a war, she shook her head. The gods are drunk. That is the only explanation. Former knight, the man corrected. Banished. As of 6 days ago. Kira's eyebrows rose. Well, the place where eyebrows would be if orcs had eyebrows the way humans did. Banished. What did you do? Refused to burn a village full of civilians. Ah, Kira nodded like that made perfect sense. You got the wrong kind of conscience. That will get you every time. They sat there for a moment. 2 people who should have been enemies. United in the shared experience of being screwed over by the systems that were supposed to protect them. I am Kira, she said finally. Kira Ashridge of the Iron Ridge clan, Garrett Brennan, of nowhere apparently. She stood, brushed sand off her armor. Proper orc armor, layered leather and bone, light enough to move in, strong enough to stop a blade. She checked herself for injuries, moving with the efficiency of someone who had done field assessment before. That is when Garrett saw it. The glint of green stone catching the dying sunlight, hanging from her neck on a leather cord, half hidden beneath her armor. The stone was broken, clearly once whole, now just a fragment. And there were marks on it, runes, old runes. Kira's hand went to it immediately, covering it, but too late. Their eyes met. That is old magic, Garrett said quietly. It is nothing. It is very specifically not nothing. Kira's jaw tightened. Her hand stayed over the stone. For a long moment, neither of them moved. The wasteland wind picked up, threw sand against rock with a sound like whispered secrets. You pulled me out of the quicksand, Kira said slowly, so I owe you truth. But truth is dangerous, especially this truth. She met his eyes. I'm going to ask you once, do you really want to know? Garrett thought about it. He thought about 6 days of walking through wasteland. Thought about High Chancellor Aldrich Blackwell standing in that marble hall, polishing those thin spectacles of his, reading the banishment decree like he was ordering breakfast. Thought about 15 years of killing people he was told to kill without asking if maybe there was a reason nobody wanted him asking questions. Yes, he said. Kira pulled the stone out, held it up to the light. This, she said, is half of the treaty seal. The orc half, it is 300 years old, and it proves that everything they taught us human and orc about why we are at war. She met his eyes. It is a lie. The words hung in the air like smoke from a battlefield. Garrett's hand went unconsciously to his sword hilt. Not threatening, just thinking. What do you mean a lie? Kira sat back down. This was going to take a while. 300 years ago, she began. There was peace, real peace. Not a truce, not a ceasefire. Actual coexistence. Humans and orcs had a treaty. This seal was the proof. Two halves, one orc, one human. When joined together, they created magic that prevented war between our species. Made it physically impossible for us to organize armies against each other. Brilliant magic, she continued. Ancient magic. The kind nobody knows how to make anymore. Her voice was steady, controlled, like she had practiced this speech, like she needed to get it right. If that existed, Garrett said slowly, why did we? Because someone broke it. Kira turned the stone fragment over in her hand, deliberately shattered both pieces, hid them, erased the treaty from history books on both sides. And then she met his eyes, started the war. That is impossible. Why would? Think about it. Her voice was low, intense. Who benefits from war? From humans and orcs killing each other for generations. Not farmers, not common soldiers, but generals, nobles, merchants who sell swords and armor. War makes them rich and powerful. Peace makes them unnecessary. Garrett felt something cold settle in his stomach. He thought about Blackwell, about the way the Chancellor had looked when he delivered the banishment decree, about how Blackwell had grown richer while the war dragged on, about how every time peace talks were suggested, they mysteriously fell apart, about the village, Redstone Mesa, 200 civilians, women, children, farmers who had nothing to do with any war. The order had come down directly from the Chancellor's office. Burn it, make an example. Garrett had refused, said burning farmers was not soldiering, it was murder. 24 hours later, he was banished. You are saying the war is fake, he said. No. Kira's expression was hard. The war is very real. People die real deaths. But the reason for the war, that is the fake part. We were taught orcs killed the human king's daughter. That started everything. Your people were taught we slaughtered a diplomatic envoy. Both lies. What actually happened? Someone broke the seal, made war possible again, then created excuses to make it happen. How do you know all this? Kira's expression darkened. My father is War Chief Thane Ironheart. Was. She corrected herself. The word tasted like ash. He found the orc half of this seal 20 years ago, hidden in ruins outside Denver. Ruins nobody was supposed to explore. He spent 2 decades researching it, piecing together what it meant. And when he tried to tell the clan elders, she continued, when he tried to say we needed to find the human half and expose the truth. Her voice cracked slightly. They called him a traitor, said he was making excuses for weakness. The war is profitable for orc warlords too. They did not want peace, they wanted him silent. But you escaped with this. She clutched the stone. He gave it to me 3 weeks ago, told me to run, to find someone who would listen, to find the human half. Her voice went quiet. They killed him 2 days later. Made it look like he died in battle. But I know better. Garrett processed this, all of it. A 300-year-old lie. A war built on profit. Leaders on both sides actively preventing peace because peace meant losing power. The human half, he said slowly. Do you know where it is? Kira pulled out a piece of folded leather from her armor, opened it. It was a map, old, detailed, with notes written in both Common and Orcish. My father spent years tracking it. The human half is in the capital, your capital, Washington, held in the royal vault beneath the castle, the place where they keep things they do not want found. Garrett stared at the map, at the vault location marked in red ink, at the notes about guard rotations and security measures. That is suicide. The vault is beneath the throne room. It is guarded by the royal guard. It is impossible to break into, I know. Kira folded the map back up, which is why I was trying to cross the wasteland, to find another way, to find someone in the human kingdoms who might listen. Who might care that this entire war is based on lies told by people who profit from our deaths? She laughed bitterly. And instead, I got stuck in magic quicksand and saved by a banished knight who probably thinks I am insane. Garrett did not think she was insane. That was the problem. Everything she was saying made a horrible kind of sense. It explained things that never quite added up. Like why peace talks always failed at the last minute. Like why both sides seemed to find reasons to escalate just when de-escalation was possible. Like why Blackwell had looked so pleased when he banished Garrett for refusing to burn civilians. War kept people like Blackwell powerful. Peace would expose them. The vault, Garrett said quietly. I know how to get in. Kira's head snapped toward him. What? I served in the Royal Guard for 3 years before they transferred me to Field Command. I know the vault, know the rotations, know the weak points. He smiled without humor. And as of 6 days ago, I have absolutely nothing to lose. You would help me, an orc. I would help you expose 300 years of lies that got good people killed so corrupt leaders could stay rich and powerful. Garrett stood, offered her his hand. The enemy is not orcs or humans. It is the bastards who benefit from us hating each other. Kira looked at his hand, at his face, at the honest anger in his eyes that matched her own. She took his hand, let him pull her to her feet. This is going to get us both killed, she said. Probably, Garrett agreed, but at least it will be for something that matters. The storm that had been threatening finally arrived. Rain started falling, big fat drops that hit the sand like declarations of intent. Lightning forked across the purple sky. We need shelter, Kira said, scanning the horizon. There are caves 2 miles east. We can plan there. Lead the way. They walked. A banished human knight and an orc warrior carrying proof of the biggest lie in 3 centuries. Heading into a storm that seemed appropriate given their circumstances. Behind them, the quicksand continued its patient waiting. It had time. The wasteland always did. The caves were not so much caves as evidence that even rocks sometimes gave up. Large enough to keep the rain out, small enough to be defensible. And with that particular smell of places that had sheltered too many travelers and kept everyone's secrets. Kira built a small fire from dried brush she had collected before the storm hit. The flames threw shadows on the cave walls that looked like they were reenacting the entire history of bad decisions that had led to this moment. So she said, warming her hands by the fire, you know the vault, what is the catch? Besides the 30 royal guards, the magical wards, and the fact that I am probably on a wanted list now. Besides all that, Garrett pulled out his own map. Less detailed than hers, but it showed the capital city with the kind of detail you only got from living there. The vault has 3 layers of security, physical guards, magical wards, and what they call the final lock. A mechanism that requires both a royal seal and a blood oath from someone with clearance. Do you have clearance? I did 6 days ago. He traced a finger along the map. But clearance is not instant revoke. The bureaucracy moves slow, takes at least 2 weeks to process a full removal from the Royal Guard access list. If we move fast, my blood might still open the final lock. Kira's eyes narrowed. Might. 60, maybe 70% chance. And if it does not work, then alarms go off. Guards flood the vault, and we die badly. Your plans need work. Open to suggestions. She studied the map. Her finger traced paths, calculated distances, measured angles. This was not just a warrior. This was a tactician. Her father had trained her well. Here, she said, pointing to a section marked Merchant Quarter. These tunnels. They connect to the old sewage system, and the sewage system has maintenance access to the vault level. How do you know that? Because my father was thorough. He sent scouts. Most of them died getting this information. But they got it. Her voice was tight. The human half of the seal is in a chest marked with the royal crest, surrounded by magical wards designed to trigger if the chest is moved. But if we can disable the wards first, the ward room is 2 floors up from the vault, Garrett said. Seeing where she was going, separate security, lighter guard presence because most people do not know it exists. Can you disable magical wards? No, but I know someone who might help. Garrett's expression darkened. If she is still alive. And if she has not decided I am better off dead. Comforting. I have been banished for 6 days. Comfort is not really on the menu. They spent the next 2 hours planning. Every detail. Every contingency. Every way this could go catastrophically wrong, which was most ways. The fire burned down to coals. The storm outside settled into steady rain that sounded like the world sighing. "Can I ask you something?" Garrett said during a lull. "Sure, why you? Your father could have given the seal to any warrior. Why send you specifically?" Kira was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was softer than before. "Because I asked questions nobody else wanted to ask. Because I looked at our raids and wondered why we kept attacking villages that had nothing, burning crops that fed nobody important, killing people who could not fight back. I asked what we were accomplishing, who we were helping." She poked the coals with a stick. "That is not popular. Warriors are supposed to follow orders, trust the war chief, believe the cause is just. I kept asking what cause. And my father saw that, saw someone who would not accept easy answers." "Sounds familiar," Garrett said. "The banishment, questioning orders, wondering who actually benefits, refusing to burn villages because burning villages did not feel like justice. It felt like murder." He smiled grimly. "Conscience is expensive." "Yeah." Kira met his eyes across the dying fire. "But the alternative is cheaper in the wrong ways." They sat in companionable silence. Two people from opposite sides of a war that should not exist. United by the radical idea that maybe mass murder for profit was bad, actually. "We should sleep," Kira said finally. "Long walk tomorrow. You sleep first. I will keep watch." "Why?" "You think I am going to murder you in your sleep?" "No. But someone might try to murder both of us, and I am too tired to trust my reflexes." She laughed. A real laugh this time. "Fair. Wake me in 4 hours." She settled against the cave wall, pulled her cloak around herself, was asleep in minutes. Warrior training. Sleep when you can, because you never know when you cannot. Garrett watched the rain. Thought about tomorrow. Thought about the vault and the seal and the enormous gamble they were about to take. Thought about how strange it was that he felt safer in a cave with an orc than he ever did in the royal court. Maybe that should have told him something years ago. The rain continued. The fire died to nothing but embers. And outside, the wasteland kept its secrets. For now. Dawn in the wasteland was less glorious sunrise and more darkness reluctantly admitting defeat. The storm had passed, left behind mud and the smell of wet sand and humidity that made breathing feel like work. They walked east, then following paths that were not really paths, but the places where the ground was slightly less eager to kill you. Kira moved like someone born to rough terrain. Garrett moved like someone who had learned rough terrain through practice and stubbornness. So Kira said after an hour of walking, "This person who might help with the wards, who is she?" "Morgan Fletcher. Wanderer. Traitor. Information broker, knows more about magic than anyone I have met, including court wizards." Garrett ducked under a low-hanging rock formation. "She helped me once when I was investigating something the court did not want investigated." "What were you investigating?" "Missing weapons shipments, swords and armor that were supposed to go to troops but kept disappearing. Turned out high-ranking officers were selling them to bandits. Let me guess, you reported it." "I reported it. They arrested the whistleblower, promoted the officers, and transferred me to the most dangerous front they could find, hoping you would die quietly. Disappointing everyone is my specialty." Kira snorted. "You would fit right in with orcs. We appreciate spite." They kept walking. The wasteland gradually gave way to scrubland, then sparse forest, signs of life returning. A bird called somewhere. A rabbit bolted from bushes. The world deciding it did not want to be dead anymore. Around midday, they reached the edge of the Merchant Road, the main trade route that connected the southern kingdoms to the capital. Dangerous for a banished knight and an orc to travel openly, but faster than alternatives. "We will look like targets," Garrett said, eyeing the road. "We are targets. Question is whether we are targets that look too dangerous to mess with. You suggesting we pretend to be more threatening than we are. I am suggesting I am a 7-foot orc carrying enough weapons to supply a small militia. And you are a scarred knight with murder eyes." Kira looked at him. "I do not think we need to pretend." She had a point. They joined the road. Merchants passed them, some giving wide berth, some nodding cautiously. A wagon full of grain, a caravan of cloth traders, a group of mercenaries heading south who took one look at Kira and decided north was suddenly more interesting. Nobody bothered them. By evening, they reached Crossroads, a settlement that existed because travelers needed somewhere to sleep that was not the ground. Not a town, not a village, just buildings clustered around an inn, a stable, and a general store that sold everything from rope to questionable meat pies. Morgan operates out of the inn, Garrett said. Back room, keep your hood up. They entered. The inn was exactly what you would expect. Dim lighting, rough tables, rougher clientele, the kind of place where people did not ask questions because they did not want to answer any. Perfect. Kira approached the innkeeper, a woman with gray hair and the expression of someone who had seen everything twice and was not impressed either time. I need to see Morgan Fletcher, Kira said quietly. The innkeeper looked her over, looked at Garrett, raised an eyebrow. 20 silver, she said. For what? For not seeing you. Kira put 20 silver on the bar. It vanished. Back room, left door, knocked 3 times. Then twice, then once. She turned away. Conversation over. They found the door. Kira knocked the pattern. Enter came a voice from inside. The room was small, packed with maps, books, magical artifacts, and one woman sitting at a desk covered in charts. She had dark skin, darker eyes, and was holding a small stone that glowed faintly blue. Morgan Fletcher looked up, saw Garrett. Her expression did not change. You are alive, she said. How disappointing for your enemies. Hello, Morgan. Hello, dead man walking. Her eyes shifted to Kira. And you brought a friend, an orc friend, in the middle of a war. Subtle, I need your help. People who need my help usually do. Morgan set the stone down. Last I heard you were banished. Something about refusing orders. Blackwell's work, I assume. His signature was on the decree. Of course it was. That man has signatures on more injustices than there are days in a year. She leaned back. So what do you need? Kira pulled out the seal fragment, set it on the desk. Morgan's expression changed. The casual amusement vanished, replaced by sharp focus. She picked up the stone, turned it over, whispered something under her breath, where she said quietly, did you get this? It is a long story. Then you better start talking. They told Morgan everything. Kira led the telling, her voice steady, clinical, like she was reporting tactical intelligence instead of describing the end of her world. The quicksand, the rescue, her father's murder disguised as glory, the seal fragment that proved 3 centuries of manufactured hatred. Garrett added details, vault layouts, guard rotations, the things he knew from 3 years of service before they decided his conscience was inconvenient. Morgan listened without interrupting. Her fingers traced the runes on the seal fragment, her expression unreadable. When they finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Well, she said finally, I always suspected the war was lies. Nice to have proof. She set the stone down carefully, like it was both precious and dangerous, which it was. The vault wards, Kira said. Can you disable them? Morgan pulled out a worn journal, flipped through pages covered in notes. Can I? Yes, will I survive doing it? That is the better question. She tapped a page. Royal vault wards are linked to the crown itself. Tampering with them sends alerts to the court wizards. But, she paused, there is a window. Shift change for the ward maintenance crew. Happens every 7 days. When is the next one, Kira asked. Morgan checked a calendar on her wall. 3 days from now, midnight to 2 in the morning. That is your window. 2 hours to break into the vault, disable the wards, retrieve the seal, and escape. Correct, Morgan met her eyes. Any longer and you will be caught. Kira did not hesitate. Then we have 3 days to prepare. This is insane. Morgan looked at them both. You know that. Yes, Kira said. And you are doing it anyway. Yes. Why? Because the war killed my father. Kira's voice was hard. Killed thousands of people on both sides. Because children grow up learning to hate. Because this lie has gone on long enough and someone needs to stop it. Morgan studied her, really looked at her. At the grief Kira carried like armor. At the determination that burned behind her eyes. At something the young orc probably did not even realize she was showing. The same quality her father had possessed. The inability to live with comfortable lies. I will help, Morgan said finally. Kira blinked. Just like that. Not because I think you will succeed. Morgan smiled grimly. You probably will not. But because sometimes you make the stupid choice because the alternative is living with yourself after making the smart one. And I am tired of smart choices that feel like cowardice. She stood, started gathering items from shelves. Ward breakers, nullification stones, tools Garrett did not recognize. 3 days, Morgan said. Rest here. I will prepare everything we need. She paused, looked at Kira. And there is something you should know. About me, about why I am really helping you. Kira waited. Morgan took a breath, like she was about to jump off something high. I am not just an information broker, she said. I was the Royal Archmage. 20 years ago, youngest person ever appointed to the position. I had access to everything, every vault, every secret, every document the Crown wanted hidden. Garrett went very still. Morgan, you never said, because saying it out loud was dangerous. Morgan's voice was tight. I found the seal, the human half, 20 years ago during a routine vault inspection. I saw the runes, recognized old magic, started researching. She laughed without humor. Took me 6 months to piece it together. The treaty, the deliberate breaking, the manufactured war. I went to the king, showed him the evidence, told him we could end the conflict if we just admitted the truth. What happened? Kira asked. Though she already knew, the answer was always the same. The king listened, thanked me for my diligence, said he would consider it carefully. Morgan's hands clenched. 3 days later, High Chancellor Aldrich Blackwell called me into his office, told me the seal was a forgery, that my research was flawed, that continuing this investigation would be considered treason. You refused, I refused, so they destroyed me, stripped my title, declared me mentally unfit, spread rumors I had been dabbling in dark magic, had me arrested on fabricated charges. Morgan's voice was flat, controlled. I escaped, went underground, spent 20 years building a network of contacts, waiting for the right moment. She looked at the seal fragment on her desk. You are that moment, she said to Kira. You and your father, people who did not know me, did not owe me anything, but found the same truth I found and had the courage to act on it. Kira stood, walked to Morgan, extended her hand, then we finished this together. Morgan took her hand, her grip was strong. 20 years of waiting crystallized into this moment. Together she agreed. They spent the rest of the evening planning. Morgan had blueprints Garrett had never seen, detailed schematics of the vault's magical defenses, notes on guard schedules, weaknesses in the system she had identified 2 decades ago. Kira absorbed it all, asked questions, made connections. Her tactical mind was terrifying to watch. She saw patterns Garrett missed, identified problems before they became crises. Here she said, pointing to Morgan's ward map, if we disable the primary conduit, the secondary wards will activate within 90 seconds. We need someone in position to suppress them immediately. I can do that, Morgan said, but I will be visible. Every court wizard in the city will know someone is tampering with the vault. How long can you hold them off? 10 minutes, maybe 15 if I am lucky. Kira looked at Garrett. How long to reach the vault from the wardroom? 4 minutes, if we run, and the bloodlock, 30 seconds to activate. If it works, she did the math in her head. That gives us 6 minutes inside the vault. Find the seal, grab any evidence documents, get out. Assuming nothing goes wrong, Garrett said. Kira smiled. It was not a nice smile. When does anything go according to plan? They worked through the night, refining, adjusting, building contingencies. By dawn, they had something that looked almost like a viable strategy. Almost. Kira slept 4 hours. Garrett took watch. Then they switched. Warriors learned to grab rest when they could, because you never knew when the next opportunity would come. Day 4 began with Morgan teaching them about wards. Magic is not mysterious, she said. It is just energy following patterns. Wards are patterns designed to detect disturbance. Think of them like tripwires made of light. She demonstrated with a small ward she had constructed, showed them how it reacted to movement, to touch, to intent. The vault wards are more sophisticated, Morgan continued. They read magical signatures, blood, intent, dozens of different markers. But they all have one thing in common. She gestured. They need power, and power comes from conduits. Cut the conduit, cut the ward, Garrett said. Not quite. Morgan shook her head. Cut the conduit, and the ward screams. Sets off every alarm in the system. What we need to do is convince the conduit nothing is wrong while we slip past. How? She held up a small black stone. Disruption matrix, old magic, very illegal. It creates a feedback loop, makes the conduit think it is still functioning normally while actually creating a blind spot. How long does it last? Kira asked. 30 minutes, then it burns out and everything comes back online. Kira nodded. Enough time if everything goes perfectly. It will not, Kira said. So we plan for imperfect. They spent the afternoon sparring. Kira needed to see how Garrett fought, needed to know what he could do when things went wrong. They moved to a clearing behind the inn, drew weapons, circled each other. Do not hold back, Kira said. I have seen you fight. I am not that stupid. Good. They clashed. Garrett fought like a knight. Formal training, disciplined technique. He exploited openings, controlled distance, used economy of motion. Kira fought like an orc, ferocity channeled through warrior discipline. Every strike meant to end the fight. No wasted movement, but no hesitation either. They were evenly matched, which meant both of them were very dangerous. After an hour, they stopped, breathing hard. Neither had landed a solid hit. Both had come close. You are good, Kira said. So are you. Garrett sheathed his sword. We work well together. We will need to. Kira looked toward the capital. It was 3 days away. 3 days until they either changed the world or died trying. That evening, Morgan pulled Kira aside, away from Garrett. Private conversation. There was something else Morgan said, something I did not want to say in front of him. What? Morgan pulled out a folder, old papers, correspondence, letters written in careful script. I told you I found evidence 20 years ago. This is part of it. Communications between Aldrich Blackwell and Orc war chiefs, coordinating attacks, planning escalations. She met Kira's eyes, making sure the war stayed profitable for everyone involved. Kira took the papers, read them. Her expression did not change, but Morgan saw her hands tighten on the documents. These names, Kira said quietly. I know these names. Some of these war chiefs are still in power, still honored, still killing your people for profit. Morgan finished. Yes, there was a name near the bottom of one letter, a signature Kira recognized. War Chief Grimfang Bloodstone. He spoke at my father's funeral, called him a hero, said his death would be avenged. He probably gave the order, Morgan said. I am sorry. Kira was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was steady, controlled. But underneath, Morgan heard something harder than steel. They all killed him, human and orc, everyone who profits from this war. They all put the knife in his back. Yes, good. Kira looked up. Then when we expose this, we expose everyone. No exceptions, no mercy for our own side just because they are orcs. Justice does not pick favorites. Morgan smiled. Your father raised you right. He raised me to ask questions. Kira folded the papers carefully. To think for myself, to care about what is right more than what is easy. She looked at the documents. These prove the conspiracy goes deeper than we thought. Much deeper. Morgan gestured to other files. I have been collecting evidence for 20 years. Names, transactions, orders. When we activate that seal, I want every scrap of this exposed. Let the whole world see what these people have done. Kira nodded. We will need help, more than just the three of us, I know. Morgan pulled out another map. This one showing the capital. I have contacts, people who have lost faith in the war, soldiers on both sides who are tired of dying for lies. She pointed to locations. This woman, Captain Lyanna Hartwell, Royal Guard. Her brother died in a border skirmish that was deliberately provoked to prevent peace talks. She knows something is wrong. Will she help if we can prove what we know? Yes, in orcs. Morgan pointed to another location. Aldrich Ravenshield, former war chief. He walked away 5 years ago. Said he was done killing for people who sent their children to mansions while his people bled in mud. Where is he now? Here, in the capital, running a veterans shelter, helping soldiers from both sides who figured out the war was lies. Kira studied the map. We need to recruit them, build a coalition. When the truth comes out, we need people ready to act on it. Agreed. Morgan looked at her. You are thinking like a leader. I am thinking like my father. Kira's voice was soft. He always said change does not come from one person. It comes from many people making the same choice, choosing truth over comfort. We start tomorrow, Morgan said. I will make introductions. You convince them. Day 5. They started with Lyanna Hartwell. She lived in officer quarters near the castle. Small apartment, Spartan, the dwelling of someone who had dedicated their life to service and had not bothered with comfort. Morgan knocked. Specific pattern, door open. Lyanna Hartwell was 31. Athletic build, short blonde hair, eyes the color of winter ice. She wore civilian clothes but moved like military. Scars on her hands said she had seen combat. Her eyes went to Kira, narrowed, then to Garrett. You have got to be kidding me, she said to Morgan. An orc and a banished knight in the capital. Are you trying to get me executed? I am trying to end the war, Morgan said calmly. Can we come in? Lyanna hesitated, then stepped aside. 5 minutes, then you leave. They sat. Kira pulled out the seal fragment, set it on Lyanna's table. This is 300 years old, Kira said. It is half of a treaty seal that proves humans and orcs had peace before the war. Real peace, the kind that made organized warfare impossible. Lyanna stared at it. So someone broke it deliberately, started the war, and has been maintaining that war for profit ever since. Kira's voice was steady. Your brother, Michael Hartwell, died at the Black Ridge skirmish 2 years ago. You were told it was an orc ambush. Lyanna's expression went cold. How do you know about my brother? Because I know the truth about Black Ridge. Kira met her eyes. There was no ambush. Both sides were ordered to attack the same location at the same time, deliberately, to prevent peace negotiations that were scheduled for the following week. You are lying. Morgan pulled out documents, orders, correspondence, communications between human generals and orc war chiefs, all dated the week before Black Ridge. Lyanna read them. Her face went pale. These are forgeries, she said, but her voice was uncertain. They are not, Kira said. And you know it, because you have seen things that did not make sense. Orders that seemed designed to escalate rather than win. Attacks on targets with no strategic value. Peace talks that always failed at the last second. Lyanna was quiet. When she spoke, her voice was tight. Why are you telling me this? Because we are breaking into the royal vault in 2 days to retrieve the other half of this seal. Kira leaned forward. And when we do, we are going to expose everyone. Every general, every war chief, every noble and merchant who has profited from 3 centuries of manufactured hatred. We are going to burn their world down. And you want my help? I want you to be ready. When the truth comes out, there will be chaos. We need people inside the system who can maintain order, who can prevent the revelation from turning into more violence. Lyanna looked at the seal, at the documents, at Kira's face. If I help you and you are wrong, I will be executed for treason. If we are wrong, Kira said, we will be dead, so you will not have to worry about it. Lyanna laughed. It was a brittle sound. You have a terrible sense of humor. I am an orc. We appreciate honesty over comfort. Lyanna was quiet for another moment. Then she stood, went to a drawer, pulled out a small wooden box, opened it. Inside was a medal. Commendation for valor. Her brother's. He believed in honor, Lyanna said quietly. Believed we were fighting for something that mattered. When he died, they gave me this and told me he was a hero. She closed the box. If you are right, if this war is lies, then his death meant nothing. No, Kira said. It meant he was a victim, like thousands of others. That is not nothing. That is why this matters. Lyanna looked at her, really looked at her. What do you need me to do? Be ready. When the seal activates, the truth will spread. We need someone in the Royal Guard who can prevent panic, who can help maintain order during the transition. I can do that, Lyanna put the medal away. But I want to be there. When you expose them, I want to see their faces. Kira nodded. You will. They found Aldrich Ravenshield at a warehouse near the docks. It had been converted into a shelter. Beds lined the walls, humans and orcs sleeping side by side. Veterans who had figured out the war was pointless and just wanted peace. Aldrich was 45, massive even for an orc, 8 feet of muscle and scars. But his eyes were tired, the eyes of someone who had seen too much death. He was serving food when they arrived, ladling soup into bowls for people who had nowhere else to go. Kira approached, introduced herself. Ashridge Aldrich said, "I knew your father, good man, asked too many questions. They killed him for it. I know." Aldrich handed her a bowl of soup. "Eat first, then talk." They sat, ate. The soup was simple but good, made with care. "My father mentioned you in his notes," Kira said. "Said you walked away from the clans 5 years ago." "I did." Aldrich's voice was deep, rumbling. "I was war chief of the Northern Ridge. Led raids for 20 years. Killed hundreds of humans. Was decorated, honored, given wealth and status. What changed? I actually looked at what we were doing. Really looked. We were attacking farming villages, burning crops, killing people who could not fight back. I asked my superiors what this accomplished, what strategic value it had, and they said war does not require justification, that humans are the enemy and enemies must be destroyed." Aldrich set down his spoon. "So I walked away, came here, started helping people both sides forgot about." Kira pulled out the seal, told him everything. Aldrich listened. His expression did not change. When she finished, he was quiet for a long time. "Your father was right," he said finally. "I suspected as much. Never had proof, but I knew, deep down, that something was very wrong." "Will you help us?" "Help you do what?" "Break into a vault, steal a seal, expose the powerful." He smiled. It was not a happy expression. "You will die. You know that." "Probably." Kira met his eyes. "But if we do nothing, the war continues. More people die. More children grow up learning to hate. More soldiers end up here broken and forgotten." Aldrich looked around his shelter, at the humans and orcs sleeping in peace, at what could be if people just stopped believing the lies. "What do you need?" "Your contacts, your people. When the truth comes out, we need community leaders ready to prevent retaliation, to help people process the revelation without turning to violence." "I can do that." Aldrich stood, offered his hand. "Your father would be proud." Kira took his hand. "I hope so." Day 6 arrived faster than any of them wanted. They met in Morgan's room one final time, made final preparations, checked equipment, went over the plan for the 100th time. Morgan handed each of them a small pendant. "Ward masks. They will hide your magical signatures for 6 hours. After that, they burn out and you are visible to every security spell in the city. Use them wisely." "Thank you," Kira said. "Do not thank me yet. Thank me if you survive." Morgan paused. "I mean that. Actually survive. Come back. Because this world needs more people who ask questions and fewer people who profit from answers nobody wants to hear." "We will try," Garrett said. "Trying is good." Morgan smiled. "Succeeding is better." They left at sundown. The capital was 3 hours north. They needed to be in position by midnight. The city at night was beautiful the way poisonous flowers are beautiful. Pretty enough to draw you in, dangerous enough to regret it. Lanterns lit cobblestone streets. Guards patrolled in pairs. Merchants closed shops while taverns opened. Everything functioning exactly as designed. Designed to protect secrets. Designed to keep order. Designed to prevent people like them from doing what they were about to do. They entered through the merchant gate using forged papers Morgan had provided. The guard barely glanced at them. Just another knight and an orc mercenary. Not unusual. The war meant strange alliances were becoming less strange. They found lodging at a safe house Morgan maintained. Small room, single window, easy escape route. "Midnight," Kira said, checking her equipment. Axe sharpened, daggers ready, ward mask around her neck. "We meet Morgan's contact at the tunnel entrance. They guide us to the sewage access point. And if the contact does not show," Garrett asked, "then we improvise." "I hate improvising." "You will love it once the adrenaline kicks in." "That is the stupidest thing you have said all week." They waited, hours crawling by like wounded animals. Finally, midnight arrived with the particular weight midnight always has when you are about to do something phenomenally stupid. They activated their ward masks. The pendants grew warm against their skin. Magic recognizing magic, hiding them from detection. They left the safe house, moved through streets growing emptier as night deepened, reached the merchant quarter just as cathedral bells told the hour. The contact was waiting, young man. Could not be more than 20. Wearing clothes that suggested poor merchant, but standing like trained scout. You are late, he said quietly. By 90 seconds, Garrett replied, relax, the man gestured. Follow me, stay quiet, do not touch anything that glows. They followed through alleys, downstairs, into tunnels that smelled like 300 years of questionable decisions. Water dripped, rats scattered. The stones beneath their feet had been old when the war started. This section, the man said, pointing to a wall with faded markings. Behind here is the maintenance access. Code is 737. Shift change happens at midnight. You have until 2. After that, full security returns. Understood, Kira said. The man looked at her. Good luck. You will need it. He turned to leave, paused. For what it is worth, he said, I hope you expose every corrupt bastard in that vault. My sister died in this war. Would be nice to know why. He vanished back into the tunnels. Kira and Garrett stood before the wall. This was it. Ready, Kira asked. No. Garrett drew a sword, not even slightly. She smiled. Good, neither am I. She pressed the stone blocks in sequence. 7, 3, 7. The wall groaned, shifted, revealed darkness beyond. They entered. The maintenance corridor was narrow, lit by dim magical crystals that pulsed like tired heartbeats. They followed it, counting doors according to Morgan's map. Third door on the left. That is the wardroom. The door was locked. Garrett produced pics he had kept from his guard days. 60 seconds later, the lock clicked. Inside the wardroom looked like someone had asked, what if we made magical security as complicated as possible and then committed to the bit? Crystals floating in midair, connected by threads of light, circles drawn in silver on the floor, papers covered in equations that hurt to look at. Find the main conduit, Kira said. Create the blind spot. 30-minute window. There. The crystal pulsed blue-white, suspended in the room's center, power flowing through it like a river. Kira pulled out the disruption stone Morgan had given them. Small, black, felt wrong to hold. You sure about this? Garrett asked. Too late for unsure. She positioned the stone beneath the crystal. Met Garrett's eyes. On 3. 1. Why does it always have to be 3? Because 2 is too few and 4 is too many. 3, 2, 1. They activated the disruption stone. It made a sound like glass breaking in reverse. The ward crystal dimmed, the threads of light flickered, and every magical security spell in the vault for exactly 30 minutes stopped looking quite so hard. Go, Kira said. They ran, downstairs, through corridors, past storage rooms filled with treasures nobody remembered storing. The vault door was exactly where the map said. End of the lowest corridor, behind a door marked with the royal seal. No guards, shift change, 2-hour window, perfect timing or perfect trap. Hard to say which. Kira approached the final lock. It looked like someone had combined a mechanical lock with a blood oath and decided that was not quite secure enough. There was a keyhole, a handprint plate, and a circle that glowed faintly red. Blood first, Garrett said, pulling out a knife, then seal. He cut his palm, pressed it to the plate. The circle glowed brighter. Red became orange, became white. The lock clicked. It worked, Kira breathed. 40% chance, Garrett said, bandaging his hand. Never tell me the odds. Kira pushed the door open. Inside was everything the kingdom wanted hidden. Documents, artifacts, and there on a pedestal in the center, surrounded by dormant wards, a chest bearing the royal crest. She approached it carefully, opened it. Inside, wrapped in black cloth, was the other half of the seal. Silver where hers was green, scarred where hers was smooth, and covered in runes that matched her half exactly. She pulled it out, held it up to her piece. The two halves recognized each other. Even broken, even separated for 300 years. They knew. Light flickered between them, not bright, just present, like meeting an old friend. We have it, Kira said, voice tight with emotion. We actually have it, Garrett confirmed. Kira reached for the fragments. Then the alarm went off. Not the wards, those were still disabled. This was different. This was the sound of guards who had just been told intruders were in the vault and that maybe coming to investigate was a good idea. That is early, Garrett said, drawing his sword. You think. The window is blown. We fight through or we die here. I vote fight through, seconded. Kira grabbed both seal halves. Lets the vault door burst open. 12 guards, full armor, drawn swords. And behind them, adjusting his spectacles in that particular way, he had stood High Chancellor Aldrich Blackwell. Well, Blackwell said mildly, this is inconvenient. Kira held the seal fragments, looked at the man who had orchestrated her father's murder. Garrett raised his sword. Morgan's ward mask was burning out. They had minutes before every mage in the city knew where they were. This is my mission, Kira thought. My choice. My stand. She met Blackwell's eyes. Did not flinch. Did not retreat. Garrett, she said quietly. Defensive position. Morgan was right, Garrett said, moving to her side. Your plans need work. Then we improvise. Together they stood, an orc warrior and a banished knight, holding proof that would end a 300-year lie, if they survived the next 5 minutes. Kira did not lower the seal fragments, did not step back, did not show the fear that was trying very hard to climb up her throat and strangle her voice. High Chancellor Aldrich Blackwell stood in the vault doorway like he owned it, which technically he did. Gray hair, thin spectacles, the kind of face that looked reasonable right up until you realized reasonable was just camouflage for ruthless. He adjusted those spectacles, a gesture Kira recognized from her father's notes. Blackwell did that when he was about to destroy someone and wanted to look civilized doing it. Sir Garrett Blackwell said mildly, or should I say former Sir Garrett. I keep forgetting. He smiled. It did not reach his eyes. When we heard someone had disabled the wards, I suspected. But I told myself no. Surely our banished knight would not be so foolish. Yet here you are, exceeding expectations. Kira stepped forward, put herself between Blackwell and Garrett, drew his attention. Her move, her mission, her fight. You know who I am, she said. Not a question. Blackwell's gaze shifted to her, lingered on the seal fragments in her hands. Kira Ashridge, daughter of the traitor Thane Ironheart. Yes, I know exactly who you are. He tilted his head slightly. Your father was quite the researcher. Spent 20 years piecing together a very inconvenient truth. Shame about his death. You murdered him. I made a few suggestions to Orc leadership about potential threats in their midst. What they did with that information was their choice. Blackwell shrugged. Like swatting a fly meant nothing. The seal is dangerous, not because it exists, but because of what it proves. That peace is possible, that war is profitable, that certain people have been lying for generations. He took a step forward. The guards moved with him. Can't have that exposed. Bad for business. You killed thousands, Kira said, her voice steady, hard. For business. I preserved order. Blackwell's tone was patient, like explaining something obvious to a child. The war keeps the military employed, the nobility powerful, the merchants rich. Everyone benefits. Well, everyone who matters. The people dying in mud do not matter. They matter as much as any soldier has ever mattered, which is to say they serve their purpose. Blackwell gestured around the vault. This world needs structure, hierarchy, control. Without the war, there would be case, famine, violence worse than what we have now. Kira laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. You think this is control? Children learning to hate before they learn to read. Families torn apart. Entire generations knowing nothing but violence. She held up the seal fragments. This is not order. This is mass murder with paperwork. Blackwell's expression did not change, but something shifted behind his eyes, the mask of civility slipping just slightly. You are your father's daughter. Same self-righteous idealism. Same inability to understand how the world actually works. He adjusted his spectacles again. So here is what happens next. You give me both halves of the seal. I will have them destroyed properly this time, and you will die quietly, as you should have done 3 weeks ago. The guards advanced, 12 armored soldiers against 2. Swords drawn, faces hidden behind helms, anonymous violence in service of institutional lies. Kira looked at Garrett. He was already moving into position. Sword ready, expression calm. 15 years of training, meeting 3 weeks of shared purpose. On my mark, Kira said quietly. Do we have a mark? We will know it when we see it. The guards charged. What followed was not elegant. Real fights never are. It was desperate and brutal, involved significantly more blood than anyone wanted. Kira fought the way her father had trained her. Every strike calculated, every movement meant to disable or destroy. She was not trying to win a duel. She was trying to survive long enough to finish what she started. Garrett fought the way 15 years in the Royal Guard had taught him. Efficient, ruthless, aiming for gaps in armor and weak points in stance. He knew how these guards moved because he used to be one of them. They dropped 3 guards in the first 30 seconds, 2 more in the minute after that, but the rest adapted, surrounded them, cut off escape routes. Kira took a sword to the ribs. The armor held, but she felt something crack. Probably a bone. Pain was information. Information said keep moving or die. Garrett took a spear across the shoulder. Same old scar. Blood ran down his arm, but his grip on his sword did not falter. They fought back to back, breathing hard, surrounded, outnumbered. This is bad, Garrett said between strikes, noted. Any brilliant ideas? Still working on it. Work faster. A guard lunged at Kira. She sidestepped, used his momentum against him, drove her blade through the gap in his armor at the shoulder joint. He went down, 6 left plus Blackwell. But Kira was slowing. The cracked rib was making breathing difficult. Her movements were getting sloppy. Predictable. Garrett was bleeding from 3 different wounds now. Still fighting but fading. They were losing. Blackwell watched from the doorway, not engaging, just observing, like this was a mildly interesting experiment. You fought well, he said, almost conversational. Better than I expected, honestly. But this was always going to end one way. He raised his hand, made a gesture. The vault itself responded. Magic woven into the walls. Emergency protocols Kira had not known existed. The stone began to move, sealing them in. 90 seconds, Blackwell said. Then the vault locks completely. You will suffocate, slowly, unpleasantly. His voice was still mild. Or you can surrender now. I will make it quick. Kira looked at the seal fragments clutched in her left hand. Her right hand held her weapon. Fighting, surviving. But surviving for what? If they died here, the truth died with them. 300 years of lies would continue. Not acceptable. She made a choice. Garrett, she said, buy me 10 seconds. What are you? Just do it. Garrett did not argue. He stepped forward, put himself between Kira and the remaining guards, started fighting like a man with nothing to lose, which he was. Kira dropped her weapon, used both hands, pulled the 2 seal fragments together. No, Blackwell shouted, his composure finally cracking. Do not, the fragments touched. Light exploded, not metaphorical. Actual explosion of radiance that filled the vault like a physical force. White and green and silver all at once. The light of something that had been broken for 3 centuries finally becoming whole again. The seal sang. That was the only word for it. A sound like crystal chimes mixed with deep drums. Magic recognizing completion after 300 years of separation. The sound was not external. It resonated inside, in bones, in blood, in the part of the soul that recognized truth when it encountered it. Every person in the vault felt it differently. For Garrett, it was warmth, like sun after long winter. For the guards, it was weight, the pressure of 3 centuries of lies lifting. For Kira, it was her father. Not literally, but the sensation of his presence, his approval, his pride, the knowledge that she had finished what he started. The light did not just illuminate, it revealed, stripped away pretense, made deception impossible. For 30 seconds, everyone in both kingdoms saw clearly, saw what had been done to them, saw who had done it, and seeing could not unsee. Every person in the vault felt it, human and orc, guard and thief, chancellor and warrior. The magic washed over them like a wave. And in that moment, the truth came, not told, shown. The seal's magic did not just prevent war. It revealed laws, made deception impossible. And when Kira brought the 2 halves together, that revelation magic activated, not just in the vault, everywhere, across both kingdoms, In every city square, every town center, every village and outpost and military camp, massive magical projections appeared in the sky, visible to everyone, unavoidable. They showed Blackwell's letters, orders for civilian massacres, correspondence with Orc war chiefs, financial ledgers showing billions in war profits, 300 years of conspiracy laid bare for all to see, faces, names, crimes, it's all exposed. In the capital, people stopped in the streets, stared up at the sky, watched their leaders' treachery displayed in letters 20 feet tall. In Orc territories, warriors saw their own chiefs coordinating with human nobles, planning attacks that killed their own people, sacrificing lives for gold. The truth was out, and it could not be put back. In the vault, the guards froze, their weapons lowered, not because they chose to, because the seal's magic made it impossible to raise arms in war. The anti-conflict enchantment that had prevented organized violence 300 years ago activated again. They could not fight, physically could not. Blackwell stumbled, grabbed at a pillar for support, his face pale, watching 3 decades of carefully constructed lies dissolve in real time. No, he whispered. Not yet. Not now. This was not supposed to. The ceiling exploded, not the seal's magic. Something else, something physical. Stone and dust rained down. The vault's roof collapsed inward, but controlled, precise. Someone had blasted through from above. Then came the sound. A war horn, deep, resonant, achingly familiar. An Orc war horn, but not the call to battle, the call to gathering, the sound that summoned clans when something important was happening. Kira knew that horn, knew it like she knew her own heartbeat. It was her father's. Through the hole in the ceiling, figures dropped. Orcs in battle armor, but not alone. Humans in military gear beside them. A mixed force, fighting together instead of against each other, and leading them. 8 feet of scarred muscle and impossible presence. War Chief Thane Ironheart landed in the vault with the grace of someone who had jumped off walls before and would do it again if needed. He was alive. Kira's breath stopped. Her heart forgot how to beat. The seal fragments slipped from her fingers. "Father, hello, daughter," Thane said, his voice exactly as she remembered. Deep, warm, real. "Sorry I am late." Death took longer to fake than expected. He was not alone. Behind him poured 50 warriors, Orc and human, fighting side by side. A force that should not exist but did. Kira could not move, could not speak, could not process what her eyes were showing her. Thane walked toward her, each step solid, concrete, not a ghost, not a dream. He reached her, looked down at her, his daughter, who he had sent into the wasteland alone, who he had let believe he was dead. "You did it, little warrior." His voice cracked slightly, emotion breaking through. "You found the human half. You exposed the truth. You finished what I started." His huge hand touched her shoulder, gentle despite his size. "I am so proud of you." Kira's legs gave out. Thane caught her, held her, and for a moment she was not a warrior or a revolutionary. She was just a daughter who thought she had lost her father and discovered she had not. She sobbed into his armor, 3 weeks of grief pouring out, relief and rage and joy all mixed together. "I thought you were dead," she said, voice muffled, broken. "I know. I am sorry." Thane held her tighter. "It was the only way. They were watching. If I had survived openly, they would have hunted you, killed you to silence the truth. So I died, went underground, spent 3 weeks gathering allies." He pulled back slightly, let her see his face, held her face in his huge hands, looked at her with eyes that held 3 weeks of watching from shadows, unable to reveal himself, unable to comfort his daughter. "I thought I failed you," she whispered. "Thought I would die before finishing your work. You did not fail. You succeeded beyond anything I imagined." His voice broke. "I sent you into the wasteland alone because I knew you were strong enough. But watching you from a distance, knowing you believed I was gone, that was the hardest thing I have ever done." "Why?" Kira asked. "Why not tell me? Because if you knew, you would have looked for me. And they were watching, hunting. If they caught even a hint I survived, they would have used you to draw me out." He touched the seal around her neck. This had to be real. Your grief, your mission, everything. I understand, Kira said. And she did, because she would have done the same. But you did the impossible part. You carried the seal across the wasteland. You found allies. You broke into this vault. You united the fragments. He smiled through tears. That was all you. Around them, Thane's forces secured the vault, disarmed the guards. They were not killing, just capturing, demonstrating the new way. Aldrich Blackwell tried to run, made it exactly 3 steps before an orc warrior the size of a small building picked him up by his expensive robes. Put me down, I demand. You demand nothing, Thane said. Walking over, his voice hard now, warrior chief tone. You are going to trial both kingdoms together for crimes against both our peoples. He looked at the seal, glowing softly where Kira had dropped it. My daughter has proof. The seal's magic showed everyone what you have done. The lies, the manipulation, the centuries of murder for profit. He met Blackwell's eyes. It ends tonight. Guards poured in from above, but not to fight. Royal guards who had seen the revelations, who had watched their chancellor's treachery displayed across the sky, who had made a choice. Captain Lyanna Hartwell led them, her sword sheathed, her expression cold. High Chancellor Blackwell, she said formally, you are under arrest for treason, conspiracy to commit mass murder, and crimes against humanity, spanning 3 decades of documented evidence. She looked at Kira, nodded once. Well done. Kira could only nod back, still processing, still overwhelmed. Garrett limped over, bleeding but alive. He looked at Thane. You are the knight, Thane said, the man who saved my daughter from Quicksand, helped her cross the wasteland, broke into the most secure vault in the kingdom to expose 3 centuries of lies. That is accurate, Garrett said, his voice tired. Former knight, technically. Thane studied him, then laughed, a huge booming sound that echoed off the vault walls. You are all right, former knight. He clapped Garrett on the shoulder, nearly knocked him over despite his size. Welcome to the revolution. The next hours were chaos. Arrests, revelations. The seal fragments fully united, glowing with power that prevented war and revealed truth. When the 2 halves were properly joined, when the ritual was completed, with words in both languages, the magic solidified, became permanent. In that moment, everyone in both kingdoms felt it. Not control, not compulsion, just the absence of the option. They could not organize armies, could not plan war, could not raise weapons in organized conflict. Individual fights were possible, defense was possible, but war, systemic violence, manufactured hatred, the magic made it impossible. Peace was not enforced. War was prevented. Trials began within days. Public proceedings, full transparency. Blackwell and 47 conspirators, human and orc, generals and war chiefs, nobles and merchants, everyone who had profited from the lie. The evidence was overwhelming. 300 years of documentation, letters, orders, financial records, all exposed by the seal's magic, all displayed for both kingdoms to see. The first to testify was Captain Lyanna Hartwell. She stood before the tribunal, calm, direct, and read from Blackwell's own letters ordering the Black Ridge attack. The attack that killed my brother, she said, was not tactical, was not strategic. It was murder designed to prevent peace talks. Her voice never wavered. And High Chancellor Blackwell signed the order himself. The crowd erupted. Guards had to restore order. Next came Aldrich Ravenshield. He described 20 years of raids that made no military sense. Villages with no strategic value. Farms that fed no armies. Just destruction for the sake of maintaining conflict. I asked why he testified. Was told warriors do not question. But I am questioning now. Human merchants admitted to war profiteering. Orc war chiefs confessed to coordinating with enemy nobles. The evidence mounted, undeniable, damning. Blackwell sat through it all, silent, his face a mask. Verdicts varied. Some received death, some exile, some imprisonment, justice not revenge, carefully measured, publicly witnessed. Blackwell stood before the joint tribunal, human and orc judges together. He looked smaller now, no spectacles to adjust, no marble halls, just an old man who had built an empire on lies and watched it collapse. "Do you have anything to say?" the head judge asked. Blackwell looked out at the crowd, at the faces of people whose lives he had destroyed, at Kira sitting in the front row, at Thane beside her. "I was trying to prevent chaos," he said, his voice quiet, thin. "Without war, without structure, this world will tear itself apart." The judge was silent for a moment, then spoke. "Perhaps, perhaps not. But that choice belongs to the people now. Not to you." Sentence. Death, carried out within the week. Kira watched, felt nothing, not satisfaction, not grief, just the weight of it, the knowledge that this changed nothing for the dead. But maybe it changed something for the living. Rebuilding began, economic transition from war industry to peace reconstruction. Painful, difficult, necessary, job programs, retraining, reconciliation commissions, truth and healing initiatives. The hard work of building something new from the ashes of something old. Kira was offered political positions: ambassador, minister, governor. She accepted one. Ambassador General, leading reconciliation efforts, traveling both kingdoms, teaching real history, building bridges. Garrett became her second in command. Commander of the Peacekeeping Corps, Joint Human-Orc Military Force, not for war, for protection, mediation, ensuring the SEAL's magic was respected and maintained. Morgan Fletcher was reinstated as Archmage. She accepted on one condition: no more secrets, full transparency, magic used for truth instead of concealment. Liana Hartwell became captain of the Joint Guard, protecting both kingdoms together. Aldrich Ravenshield expanded his shelter, turned it into a center for veterans, teaching former soldiers how to live in peace, how to build instead of destroy. Thane stepped down as war chief, became elder counselor, advising the new joint government, focusing on cultural exchange, historical preservation, making sure the truth was never lost again. 6 months later, Kira stood on the castle walls, same spot where Garrett had stood 6 days before everything changed, where they had planned an impossible heist. The capital spread below. Different now. Humans and orcs walking together. Still tension, still problems, but progress, real progress. Garrett joined her. He moved easier now. Wounds healed, scars added to his collection. "Think it will last?" Kira asked. "That is up to everyone now." Garrett looked out over the city. "Not just us." "Good. Because I am tired. You earned tired." They stood in comfortable silence. Two people who had changed the world through the radical act of refusing to accept that enemies had to stay enemies. "The bravest warriors," Kira said quietly, "are not those who never feel fear." Garrett smiled. "They are the ones who choose peace despite it. Something my father told me." "He taught you well." Down in the memorial hall, the seal glowed softly. Whole again, protected, guarded by both kingdoms together, engraved beneath it. Truth revealed, peace chosen. Children studied it, human and orc, learning real history, understanding what had been stolen from their ancestors, what they now had the chance to build. A teacher was explaining, her voice carrying up to where Kira stood. This is how the war ended. Not with victory, not with surrender, but with courage, with people who chose truth over comfort, who pulled each other from quicksand even when everyone said they were supposed to be enemies. Kira closed her eyes, felt the weight of her father's seal around her neck. The fragments separated again. One for each kingdom, symbols of trust, of shared responsibility. "Some victories are not won on battlefields," she said softly. "They are won in the quiet moments when we choose others over ourselves." Garrett nodded. "When we choose right over easy, truth over lies, peace over profit." They turned from the wall, headed back inside. There was work to do, always work. Building peace was harder than waging war, required more courage, more patience, more faith in people's better nature. But they had started something. Kira and Garrett and Thane and Morgan and everyone who had chosen truth when lies were easier. Who had chosen unity when division was profitable. The world did not change overnight. It never does. Peace was messy, slow, involved thousands of small choices made by millions of people. But they had given those people a chance. Removed the lie that said war was inevitable. Hate was natural. The other side was the enemy. And in the absence of that lie, something new could grow. Kira walked through the halls, her halls now, ambassador general, leader, bridge builder, her father's daughter. She passed a window, saw her reflection, 26 years old, scarred, tired, alive. And behind her reflection in the glass, she saw her father. Not real, just memory, but solid enough. He smiled, proud. She smiled back, then kept walking, toward the future, toward the next challenge, toward whatever came next. Because the most powerful weapon was not a sword, it was truth. And the will to fight for it, even when fighting meant pulling someone from quicksand, even when everyone said they were supposed to be your enemy, especially then. The sun set over the capital, painting the sky gold and red, the colors of ending and beginning all at once. Somewhere a child laughed. Human or orc, it did not matter. Just the sound of innocence that had not learned to hate yet. And maybe, if they did this right, if they worked hard enough, believed strongly enough, that child never would.